Demoted and dismissed, she revealed an amazing skill launching a jet with just a hand signal. In the modest suburban town of Maplewood, Sarah's dreams once soared higher than the plane she directed. She poured her soul into every shift as an air traffic controller, where her commands lived and breathed above Texas skies. But now, at 35, she was just another face in the crowd, serving burgers and shaking fries at the local diner. The bright red neon sign blinked over her like a cruel reminder of what she'd lost. That title air traffic controller felt like a distant world, a bittersweet echo lingering over her heart. It shattered under the weight of unspoken biases and relentless judgments, leaving her invisible, her worth questioned. Outside, the townspeople chatted and laughed, fireworks readying to dive into the summer night sky. But inside Sarah's chest, her heart raced with anxiety. Bills piled up, and each overdue notice felt like a crushing weight. "You were so good at your job," whispered a neighbor once, their admiration fading to a dismissive glance now. It stung like a slap. Why did they see her past, not her present? She hugged Lucy, her 10-year-old daughter, tightly that morning, as if trying to pass her own ambition through their embrace. "You're gonna fly one day, huh?" Sarah teased, forcing a smile. Lucy, with wild curls and eyes that sparkled like the stars, nodded fiercely. "I want to be in the Air Force, Mom, just like you were." At that moment, pride mixed with pain danced within Sarah as she watched her daughter dream big. "You will," she breathed softly, hiding the cracks in her voice, imagining the triumph of leading young pilots one day. The 4th of July loomed closer, but joy felt foreign now. How could she inspire Lucy when she was struggling to inspire herself? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. A week later, tragedy struck the community. A plane accident at the nearby airport spiraled into chaos. Sarah felt that familiar clenching in her chest, her heart racing as she caught wind of the event. Memories flooded back, her instincts igniting. She pulled Lucy close, her mind racing with thoughts of planes, what-ifs, and the responsibility she used to bear. With sirens wailing and chaos swirling, she found herself at the scene, her heart pounding like a drum echoing through the sheets of uncertainty. Then, amid the frenzied ground crews shouting, pilots scrambling to communicate, she stood tall. Those hand signals she once wielded with finesse came flooding back. "I can do this," she thought, stepping forward into the fray. It dawned on her, like a revelation. Her experience wasn't just forgotten. It could save lives. She raised her hand, the crowd turning at her wave, questioning her presence, yet somehow drawn to the authority in her stance. Sarah felt the stirrings of purpose blossom within her once more. "I'm not done yet," she shouted, igniting a flicker of hope in her core. Inspired by the weight of responsibility, she decided then, if she could teach the kids of Maplewood the essential art of hand signaling, perhaps she could reclaim her identity and rally her community. With Lucy cheering her on, she crafted flyers and knocked on doors, knowing that this time, she wasn't just fighting for herself, she was building something bigger. As the sun dipped beneath the horizon, she could sense a change. Young faces responded to her passion, eyes lighting up over the prospect of learning and bonding. Yet, doubt crept in. Could she truly break the stigma clinging to her? Could she inspire a town that had turned their backs during her dark days? With the first class soon to gather, she held her breath, standing on the precipice of a new beginning, and the stars above seemed to whisper, "This is just the start." Would this be her chance to reclaim her spirit, her dreams, her life? The day of Sarah's first class arrived. The sun spilled golden light over Maplewood, illuminating the park where she'd chosen to hold the lessons. Kids buzzed with energy, darting around amid squeals and laughter. Their enthusiasm was contagious, but as she looked out over their faces, Sarah felt a wave of vulnerability wash over her. What if they didn't take her seriously? What if they saw her as nothing more than the burger-flipping mom who once had a different life? With Lucy by her side, Sarah set up the makeshift lesson area. She laid out cones to simulate runway markers, using vibrant streamers as visual aids. Her heart thumped steadily, a metronome keeping time with her racing thoughts. Focus, she whispered to herself, reminding herself of the purpose that had rekindled her spirit as the first group of kids gathered, curious and bright-eyed. She cleared her throat. Hey everyone, I'm excited you're here today to learn something amazing: how to signal like an air traffic controller. The children's faces lit up. A few exchanged excited whispers, and Lucy beamed at her mother, pride bursting in her small chest. The first few minutes were rocky. Sarah stumbled over her words, her nerves making her feel smaller than the woman she had fought to become. But she pressed on, demonstrating the basic hand signals with precision, recalling all the little nuances she once practiced religiously. As she moved her arms, she remembered the thrill of directing jets soaring overhead, felt the rush of purpose flooding back. Now, who wants to give it a try? Sarah asked, opening the floor for questions. As she pointed at a boy named Charlie, he hesitated, glancing nervously at the other kids. Sarah's heart ached seeing his fear, knowing firsthand how easy it was to feel small in a room full of judging faces. You've got this, she encouraged, a warmth spilling into her voice. With hesitant steps, Charlie approached. Sarah guided him through the motions, and watching his confidence grow lit a fire in her. As he nailed the signals, laughter erupted from the crowd. Cheers filled the air, and Sarah felt something shift deep within her. She wasn't merely showing a skill, she was passing a torch, igniting dreams. See, you guys are naturals, she praised, and the kids beamed back at her, a sea of bright smiles that melted the lingering shadows of her past. The day continued, laughter and enthusiasm bubbling around her. Sarah felt the weight of doubt begin to lift, replaced by a sense of belonging. But as the class wrapped up, a few parents lingering nearby whispered amongst themselves. Sarah caught snippets, their tones heavy with skepticism. What does she know? Just a diner worker now? The comments stung, cutting through her newfound happiness like shards of glass. Could she truly break the stigma? Even in her moments of triumph, the whispers clung on stubbornly. As the last of the kids began to disperse, Lucy ran up to her, glowing with excitement. Mom, that was amazing. You were great. Her daughter's laughter filled the air like music. Sarah knelt down, pulling Lucy into a tight embrace. Thanks, sweetheart. I couldn't have done it without you cheering me on. Deep down, Sarah knew this was only the beginning. If she could keep going, keep teaching, she could even inspire the doubters. But as she looked back at the whispering parents, a new worry twisted in her gut. Would the community ever truly see her for who she was right now? Or would her past always overshadow her present? Determined to push through, she looked up at the twilight sky and whispered a wish to the stars. This journey would not be easy, but she was ready to fight for her place. A celebration awaited, and she wouldn't let anything hold her back. Taking one last deep breath, she vowed to return the following week, ready to face whatever doubts came her way. Just then, a small voice chirped from behind. Are we going to do this every week? Her heart soared. Yes, we are. And even better things are coming. With a spark of determination, Sarah smiled, feeling the pull of a deeper purpose within her. But as she turned to walk back, her chest still heavy with concern, she noticed a shadowy figure watching from the periphery, one that sent a shiver down her spine. Who were they, and what secret did they hold? The feeling of uncertainty wrapped around her like a cold embrace. What would happen next? The following week, Sarah arrived at the park with an eager heart. Excitement bubbled in her chest as she set up once more, cones and streamers framing her little teaching area like a colorful stage. The air was thick with anticipation, a blend of childlike curiosity and her own urgent need to prove herself. Lucy helped out, hopping around, her energy infectious. Mom, do you think more kids will come today? She asked, clutching a painted cardboard airplane. The sincerity in her daughter's eyes made Sarah smile. I hope so, honey. Let us show them how fun this is. As the time approached, a handful of kids started filtering in. Charlie was one of the first to arrive. He dashed up to her, his confidence noticeably brightened since last week. Can I show you what I learned? He beamed, raising his small hands in front of him, ready to perform. Absolutely, Sarah encouraged, trying to bury her own anxieties. Charlie executed the signals with flair, and the others clapped. In that moment, Sarah realized it wasn't just about teaching them, it was about creating a space where they could all shine, where fears could be shed like old skin. As the class progressed, Sarah's nerves slowly drifted away. Laughter echoed in the park, mixing with shouts of exhilaration as the children mastered the hand signals. Each successful attempt felt like a brick added to her foundation. She was building their confidence while mending her own. But amid the joy, her eyes kept drifting back to the side of the park where the shadowy figure from last week had stood. Was it her imagination? Or was someone really watching her? Every time she glanced that way, the nagging anxiety returned, wrapping around her heart like a vine. "Mom, look!" Lucy cried, interrupting her train of thought. "Everyone is doing it." Sarah turned to see a group of kids excitedly mimicking the signals together, their laughter rising like the clouds drifting above. Moments later, the air took on a tense stillness. A group of parents entered the park, their expressions uncertain. Sarah felt an immediate wave of apprehension. This was at the moment of reckoning. Would they be supportive? Would old judgments resurface? The group lingered on the outskirts, exchanging low whispers. As she demonstrated a new, more complex signal to the kids, their eyes sparkled with excitement. But Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that their gaze held something darker. "Let us practice our takeoff signals," she announced, trying to rally the spirits. "Who's with me?" The kids cheered, but the noise of their enthusiasm contrasted sharply with the stony silence from the adults. Determined, Sarah took a deep breath and stepped closer to the parents. "Hello, I'm Sarah, and I'm teaching these kids how to communicate like air traffic controllers. Would you like to join us?" Her voice was steady, but her heart raced. One mom gave a slight nod, but the others stayed aloof. "What do you know about this?" One voice called out, laced with skepticism. "You're just a diner worker?" Sarah finished, taking the words from their lips. The moment felt frozen, and she could feel all eyes on her. "You're right," she continued, her heart pounding. "I am a diner worker, but I'm also a certified air traffic controller. I love sharing this knowledge with kids. They can aspire to anything, just like I did." It felt like the air had thickened. Some gasps echoed in the crowd. A few faces softened. But would it be enough? Her throat felt tight with uncertainty. From the corner of her vision, she noticed Lucy standing tall, her little cardboard airplane raised above her head, a proud champion of her mother. The sight pushed Sarah through her anxiety like a hidden breeze. "Do you think anyone can learn to signal?" she asked the parents, her voice rising above the soft murmurs. "What if we all tried it together? Would you join us?" The moment stretched, the desire to be accepted mingling with the fear of rejection. Would they give her the chance? She stood firm, ready for whatever was next, the anticipation crackling in the air around them. There was a choice to be made. Would they step forward or turn away? Silence hung over the park, a taut string ready to snap. All eyes were now on the parents, waiting, hoping. Sarah could feel the weight of their scrutiny. Her heart pounded loudly in her chest as she glanced at Lucy, who narrowed her eyes, determined as if to say, "Come on, you can do this, Mom." After an eternity, the lead parent, a tall, stern-looking woman with graceful hair, stepped forward, hesitating but finally moving with purpose. "Okay, let us see what you've got, then," she said, her tone still skeptical but tinged with a hint of curiosity. Relief washed over Sarah like cold water. She could hardly believe it. "Great. Okay, everyone, let us gather." She called to the kids, who buzzed with excitement at the prospect of showing off what they had learned. As the children clustered around her, Sarah felt a surge of pride. She was doing this not only for them, but also for herself. She pointed to the sky with her arm, signaling, and the children followed her lead. "Ready for takeoff?" She laughed, her voice ringing with optimism. "Ready," they chorused, their little bodies buzzing with enthusiasm and eagerness. The parents took cautious steps closer, drawn in by the infectious energy. Sarah guided the children through a series of signals, her movements fluid and confident. With each command, she could see the fear melting from her students' faces, replaced by pure joy. "Now let us put those signals together. Who can show us the perfect takeoff?" she encouraged, and hands shot up, kids eager to take their turn. The group erupted into happy chaos. Mimicking the takeoff motions, their laughter intertwining like a well-choreographed dance. But as she clapped along, a flicker of doubt crept back into her mind. What about the other parents? Would they stay? Would they join in? The tall woman was still observing, her expression unreadable. But another parent in the group, a smiling dad in a bright blue polo, suddenly laughed and called out, "This is amazing. I didn't know how cool this was." "Right," cheered another mom, her voice brightening the atmosphere. "Can we try?" Encouraged, the kids beamed at their parents, teeth shining, as they encouraged them to join. It was a small shift, but a hopeful one. Sarah's heart raced with anticipation. Were they really stepping in? The adults hesitated just for a moment, exchanging glances filled with tentative excitement. Sarah's eyes widened as they moved closer. "Okay, let us all try together," she urged, practically vibrating with exhilaration. The parents joined the kids, attempting signals with their awkwardly coordinated movements. Laughter erupted as one dad mimicked a takeoff so exaggeratedly that it sent all the kids into fits. As the joy spread, Sarah felt the heaviness from the earlier judgment lift. This was what she had wanted, a shared experience that broke down walls and created connections. But while laughter filled the air, the earlier familiar shadow from the edge of the park crept back into her mind. Just then, from the corner of her eye, Sarah caught a glimpse of the figure watching once more. It was too far away to identify, but a sudden chill rippled through her, a reminder of doubt just when everything was looking up. "Let us try the landing now," she called, swallowing her unease. As they practiced the final signal, Sarah's voice rang through the park, but her heart fluttered with uncertainty. Who was watching? What did they want? Would they ruin this moment? The laughter continued to dance around her, yet fear intertwined with hope, a tightrope she was learning to walk. And as those thoughts whirled like autumn leaves caught in a breeze, she could only wonder what surprise awaited her next. As the laughter of children and parents filled the air, Sarah's focus wavered. The energy around her buzzed with enthusiasm, yet a persistent shadow tugged at her thoughts. Who could it be watching from the edge of the park? She glanced again, but the figure was gone, swallowed by the trees. "Okay, everyone, let us land this jet safely," she shouted, pushing aside her worries for the moment. The children lined up, eyes sparkling with excitement. In that instant, she felt like a conductor leading an orchestra, scaling the highs and lows of the emotional symphony before her. "Remember, arms wide for landing. 1, 2, and..." Sarah swooped her arms down in a graceful arc, and the kids mirrored her, their laughter bubbling over any lingering doubts. By now, parents were giggling and mimicking the kids, completely engrossed. Sarah couldn't help but smile wide. Moments like this reminded her why she had picked up this role in the first place. It wasn't just about teaching. It was about gathering a community, creating joy. Suddenly, the dad in the blue polo broke away from the others. "All right, let us get that takeoff again," he hollered, his bravado infectious. The group cheered and reassembled, eager for more. "Let us do it." Sarah found herself beaming, relishing the exuberance shared between children and parents alike. Laughter rang, filling the park with warmth and connection she had yearned for since moving to this neighborhood. But as she looked around, the sense of belonging intensified with a pang of vulnerability. The tall woman stood on the edge, still studying with an inscrutable expression. Every cheer drew Sarah closer and farther. Who was she? What did she think? "Ready for takeoff, everyone?" Sarah's voice rang out, though the tremor in it betrayed her rising anxiety. "Let us give it all we've got." "We're ready," the kids shouted back. They jumped and flailed their arms, embracing the feeling of soaring high. The laughter rose to a crescendo as the unbelievable joy of this moment cocooned Sarah, making her momentarily forget about the lingering stranger watching. Each cheer sparked a little more confidence in Sarah. She began choreographing more complex routines, mixing an imaginative takeoff and landing maneuvers with signs they had just learned. Eyes filled with wonder danced between children and parents, united in their growing bond through shared laughter. But just as the moment reached its peak, the air shifted abruptly. A loud rustling broke through the jubilant sounds. Heads turned toward the direction of the noise, sudden panic rippling through the joyful atmosphere. Emerging from the trees, the figure reappeared. It was a child. The park went silent, eyes wide with confusion. The parents watched, uncertainty brewing in their gazes. "Mom," the child shouted, running toward the tall woman. "I saw you. I knew you were here." All at once, reality rushed back to Sarah, the air thickening with tension. The woman stiffened, her face a mix of emotions, a flicker of joy, stained with frustration. It caught in Sarah's throat. Was the moment now shifting? Who was that? A parent murmured, glancing at Sarah. In an instant, the laughter felt fragile, like glass about to shatter. Sarah's heart quickened as she took a deep breath. This was just a moment, she reminded herself. But could it hold the key to something more? What if the echoes of this day transformed everything? She faced the group, grounding herself. But with the weight of that sudden twist, could she still weave the joy that had just been born? "Let us see what happens next," Sarah called, holding on to her courage. What lay ahead could change the course of this day, or perhaps even her life. A heavy silence enveloped the park, punctuated only by the occasional rustle of leaves. Sarah's heart raced. She glanced at the tall woman, where conflicting emotions played across her features. Was this an interruption or an opportunity? Whatever it was, the children's laughter faded to a distant memory. "Mom," the child cried, wrapping clingy arms around the woman's waist. The tall woman's smile was hesitant, layered with something deeper that Sarah couldn't quite decipher. "Are you okay, honey?" the woman asked, kneeling to meet her child's gaze. There was a tension in her voice that sent a ripple through Sarah. It wasn't just a simple reunion. It felt fraught with unspoken words and buried stories. The parents exchanged wary glances. In that moment, the camaraderie of the park felt delicate, on the brink of a shift. Can a single person, their relationship, their story alter how everyone else fits into the puzzle? Sarah cleared her throat, hoping to refocus the group. "All right, everyone. Looks like we have a surprise guest. Thoughts?" She scanned the children's eager faces, searching for a spark to reignite the energy. "Why don't we welcome them with a big cheer?" The kids, sensing her urgency, rallied together. "Welcome, welcome," they chanted, jumping with enthusiasm. It was infectious, a wave of excitement that momentarily chased away the uncertainty. The woman straightened, smiling as she waved a hand, albeit slowly, almost as if she were struggling to decipher how to embrace this moment. It mirrored her earlier tension. "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling slightly. Was she relieved or overwhelmed? The child looked back at Sarah, her innocence piercing through the atmosphere. "Are you going to show us how to land again?" The question sparked a light in Sarah's heart, reigniting her courage. "Absolutely. Let's soar back into our jet adventures," she exclaimed, though beneath her cheerful exterior, apprehension brewed. Could she truly redirect everyone's attention, or had the fragile moment caused by the woman's arrival stolen the spotlight for good? Sarah approached, stepping carefully into the emotional space between the mother and child. "What is your name?" she asked, kneeling down to bring herself to the child's eye level. "Sophie," the little girl chimed, her face lighting up like a sunbeam. "Sophie, that is a fantastic name," Sarah responded, wishing to welcome her into the fold, to make her feel part of what had created warmth moments before. "All right, Sophie, are you ready to help us steer our jet?" Sophie nodded vigorously, eyes sparkling with excitement. Sarah turned to the crowd of families, rolling right into the routine. "Okay, we're going to take off again, everybody. Get ready." As she signaled with her hands, she noticed the tall woman tentatively stepping forward, curiosity budding beyond her initial frustration. "Wait," the woman interjected, her voice cutting through the excitement. A hush fell over the crowd. "Can I join?" "Of course." Sarah beamed, heart racing again, but this time with anticipation. The others followed suit, stepping closer. "Yes, come on." The dad in the blue polo encouraged, his energy infectious and rallying others to respond. With each word, Sarah sensed the tension dissipating, blooming into something beautiful. It was a moment of vulnerability, of openness. The faces around her softened, smoothed over with understanding. As they all joined in, bolstered by shared laughter and encouragement, Sarah found herself more confident. The routine unfolded like a dance, joy blossoming yet again. But lurking in the corners of her mind, doubts clawed at her. What awaited them on this winding path? Would the unexpected reunion lead to acceptance or unearth buried secrets that could fracture the very joy they were building? The park buzzed around her, laughter moments away from spilling over once more. What will happen next? She thought, holding on to hope. The melodic laughter of children filled the air once again. But could this day reveal deeper connections or unresolved tensions threatening to break their joyful embrace? The energy surged like electricity through the park as the tall woman, still kneeling beside Sophie, took a deep breath and stood, ready to embrace this unexpected invitation. Her shoulders relaxed just a bit, and for the first time, Sarah caught a glimpse of warmth behind the initial apprehension. It was as if the sunlight had finally broken through a cloud. "Okay," the woman said, her voice rising with determination. "I'm ready to be part of this adventure." "Yay!" Sophie cheered, bouncing on the balls of her feet. With that rallying cry, Sarah clapped her hands together, rallying the group. "You heard her. Everyone, let us show our new friends how we do this." Her heartbeat quickened, and for a moment, all the doubts she had melted away in a wave of joy. The group began to mimic her hand signals, arms wide. Then tucked in close they moved in perfect unison. Sarah watched the children transform, their eyes sparkling as they immersed themselves in the thrill of the routine. The tall woman joined in, mimicking the gestures with a growing sense of ease. It brought life back into her features. Laughter bubbled up from the families gathered around, cocooning them all in a moment of togetherness. "Touchdown!" Sarah yelled, triumphantly bringing her hands down. The kids hooped and giggled, celebrating their landing. "Can we do it again?" Sophie's voice chirped, her eyes bright with anticipation. "Yes, let's do it," Sarah responded, her own excitement bubbling to the surface. They readied for another run, and the atmosphere sparkled, alive with shared spirit. But as they started again, Sarah caught subtle glances exchanged between the tall woman and the child. There was something unspoken, a thread weaving through the laughter that hinted at a deeper story, a narrative pulsing just beneath the surface. What had brought them to this park on this day? Was this truly a reunion? Or perhaps something more complex, a chance for understanding after time spent apart? Sophie's question broke through Sarah's reverie, her tiny hands raised high. "Mom, I want to be the pilot this time." The tall woman's smile faltered for a fraction of a second, and Sarah felt a shift in the air. Was that relief or apprehension she saw? "Of course, sweetheart. You can lead," she replied, her voice soft but tinged with something deeper, a wistfulness that flickered like a candle in the breeze. As Sophie assumed the role of pilot, the atmosphere shifted again. The group was still laughing, but now a layer of tenderness coiled around them. With each sweep of her arms, they began to dance to a rhythm that felt both familiar and new. As the game stretched on, Sarah took a moment to observe the connection blossoming. The tall woman crouched close to Sophie, her eyes full of pride as she listened to her imaginative plans for flying high and navigating the skies. The other parents leaned in closer, offering gentle encouragement and nodding with understanding. Then, an unexpected turn. Sophie, beaming, turned to Sarah. "Can you tell us what it's like to fly really, really high?" The question hung in the air, and Sarah faltered, surprised by the depth hidden in the innocent words. The moment felt timeless, and she realized that this story was more than just a performance. It was about sharing, about longing for connection, the very thing they all now craved. As she began to speak, Sarah noticed the tall woman's attention sharpen. It was as if the layers of her past were unraveling just enough to let the light pour in. "Flying high? It's about feeling free, like the sky is just waiting for you," she began, her voice steadying with every word, feeling the moment solidify around them. Then, before she could continue, a sudden rustle interrupted their reverie. A loud crash came from across the park, capturing everyone's attention. "What was that?" A voice rang out anxiously, and the joyful atmosphere plunged into uncertainty. Sarah's heart raced. What could it mean? Had the fragile connection they'd begun to build suddenly been tested? Would they confront something that could threaten the new bond they'd forged in light of laughter? As the crowd turned anxiously toward the sound, she realized this day was about to take an unpredictable turn. A palpable tension hung in the air as parents, children, and the tall woman turned their attention to the source of the commotion. A small group of kids had gathered near the park's edge, eyes wide in shock, pointing toward a toppled food cart that now lay at an odd angle. The vendor, a middle-aged man with a bright apron, was scrambling to pick up scattered snacks, his face a mixture of embarrassment and frustration. "Are you okay?" Sarah called out, concern washing over her. The man nodded, though he looked shaken. The laughter and joy that had filled the park evaporated in an instant, replaced by whispers of worry. "Look!" Sophie exclaimed, breaking the silence. She tugged on her mother's sleeve, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Can we help him?" The tall woman's shoulders relaxed just a little more, and she tilted her head towards Sophie, appreciating her instinct. "That's a great idea," she encouraged, her voice gaining strength. "Let us bring him some help." Sarah agreed earnestly, feeling the moment stir something deep within her. The connection they had cultivated was still alive, and here was another way to nourish it. With Sophie leading the charge and Sarah beside her, the two made their way toward the food cart, joined by kids from the group. The tall woman hesitated for a brief moment, then followed close behind, her expression shifting from uncertainty to determination. As they reached the vendor, Sarah noticed that the energy was slowly returning like the sun breaking through clouds, bringing life back to the park. She knelt beside Sophie and began helping the vendor gather up the fallen items. "Let us see how we can fix this, huh?" Sophie beamed with excitement, her little hands reaching for a bag of chips while chanting to the vendor, "Don't worry, we'll make it right." The vendor's surprise turned into a tentative smile, and he earned some laughter from the crowd, which was starting to gather again. The tall woman stepped in and began chatting with the vendor, asking if he needed any other help. There was something in her voice, an unexpected strength that resonated with Sarah. She watched the two converse, their mutual understanding forming as quickly as the clouds were lifting. Yet, amidst the camaraderie, Sarah felt a nagging pull in her gut. She recalled the connection between the tall woman and Sophie, the flicker of emotions beneath the surface. Were they trying to rebuild something? Or maybe it was still fragile, like those scattered snacks, waiting for the right moment to be collected. With the team working together, the vendor emptied the cart's contents back inside. Laughter bubbled up once more, and for the first time, the atmosphere felt buoyant again. As they finished, Sarah looked around at the children, their earlier joy revived, while the tall woman and Sophie exchanged a glance filled with something deeper, a shared experience bridging any divides that had lingered. "Thank you all. You turned my bad day into something wonderful," the vendor declared, his smile now genuine and bright. The tall woman raised her hands with slight theatrics and grinned. "Just like flying high, right?" Sophie squealed with delight, her laughter echoing in the air. But just then, another noise erupted, a loud voice calling out from behind them, filled with urgency. "Is anyone missing a bag? We need help. Now." The crowd froze again, uncertainty creeping back into the park. What new challenge awaited them? And would the bonds they had started to form be strong enough to face it together? As Sarah turned to look, a sense of foreboding settled in her chest. Would this moment fracture the fragile connections they had made, or could they rise to the occasion once more? The panic in the park was palpable. Parents were whispering, and kids squirmed, their faces shifting from joy to confusion. Sarah felt the shoulders around her tense as more eyes turned to scan the crowd, searching for something or someone. The urgency in that voice echoed in her ears like a distant alarm. Sophie gripped Sarah's hand tightly, her small fingers trembling slightly. "What is happening?" she asked, her wide eyes searching the crowd. "I don't know, sweetheart," Sarah replied, forcing calm into her voice. She could feel a knot tightening in her stomach. It was the kind of anxiety that coursed through her whenever something felt off, when the atmosphere weighed heavy with unresolved feelings. Just ahead, the tall woman took a step forward, her posture straighter, her expression filled with purpose. "Let us find out," she called, moving toward the source of the shout. Something about her confidence was grounding. It reminded Sarah that they were not alone in this. As the small cluster of children followed, Sarah noticed how quickly they fell back into their roles of helpers. Laughter and chatter began to bubble again, like little drops of rain on thirsty ground. "I'm here. What do you need? Can we help?" The bright sparks of childhood innocence began to flicker back to life. When they reached the voice, it came from another vendor, a young woman, breathless and frantic. "A little girl is missing her backpack. It has her favorite toys and a blanket. We need to find her." Sarah's heart raced. The demands of the moment felt overwhelming. but she refused to be swept away. Instead, she turned to Sophie. Can you help me keep track of where people are looking? Sophie nodded eagerly, her fear replaced with determination. The tall woman spoke again, her voice strong and steady. Everyone, let us split up and look. If anyone sees a small pink backpack, shout out, and we'll come over. More heads began to nod, their energy shifting as they embraced the shared task. Families began to spread out, casting anxious but hopeful glances toward each other. The tall woman seemed almost like a beacon, her calm demeanor igniting a collective resolve. Sarah joined a few other parents, moving toward the nearby playground. Sophie, stay close, she urged, keeping one eye on her daughter while scanning under swings and slides. Suddenly, a shrill voice pierced the air. There she is. A little girl was peeking from behind a tree, her hair wild and eyes big with surprise. Behind her, an unmistakable pink backpack lay discarded, its zipper slightly open. Before Sarah could react, Sophie dashed forward, shouting, "You found her!" The little girl broke into a grin, her relief palpable. As the crowd began to gather around, they all leaned in, sharing in the excitement of victory. But as the tall woman helped the girl retrieve her backpack, there was a shift. In that moment, a subtle exchange passed between the tall woman and Sophie. It was almost like they were recognizing something beyond words. Yet in the mix of laughter and relief, Sarah felt that same tightness in her chest. They had come together in an emergency, but the underlying question remained. Could these bonds really hold? Just as the atmosphere lightened, Sophie exclaimed, "Wait, what about the vendor with the fallen cart?" He was sad. The tall woman turned sharply, her expression contemplative. "You're right, Sophie. We can't leave him out." A collective sigh reverberated around them, and Sarah realized this was more than a team helping a lost child. It was a community coming back together after a moment of crisis. With renewed purpose, they all began making plans. Yet, as they moved forward, waiting for the next step, Sarah's heart raced again. Would this shared experience be enough to forge lasting connections, or would it come crashing down like the food cart had? As they made their way to the vendor, a familiar voice cracked through the jovial atmosphere once more. "Is there trouble again? Please, I can't lose her." Unease rippled through Sarah's heart. Was there another challenge ahead, or perhaps something darker looming nearby? As Sarah looked out over the crowd, her heart raced. The faces around her held both excitement and uncertainty, now intermingled with echoes of yesterday's laughter. The tall woman, whom she had begun to form a bond with, stood beside Sophie, their shared determination glistening like sunlight breaking through clouds. "Okay, listen up." Sarah's voice rang out, steady but warm. "We're going to head back to that vendor. Together, we can make this right." She led the way, the group following like a mayfly trailing the sun. The world felt alive again, a buzzing harmony as parents and kids marched forward. The distant chatter from the vendor's cart mixed with the rustle of leaves and a gentle breeze weaving through the trees. There was strength in their gathered numbers, and Sarah pushed her doubt away, knowing this moment could be the genesis of a beautiful community. When they reached the vendor, still picking up after the earlier chaos, relief flooded his features upon seeing them approach. "Thank you all for coming back," he said, glancing at the tall woman and Sophie. "I really appreciate your help. Let us do this together," Sarah exclaimed, her voice ringing with contagious optimism. She began gathering supplies, others following suit, laughter slowly re-emerging as they worked side by side. The tension that had once clouded the park began to dissipate, replaced by shared determination. "Who has got the chips?" Sophie shouted, her small hands fumbling with a bag that had slipped free. The joy of working together colored the moment, and the vendor's smile grew broader. Sarah caught the tall woman's eye, and in that flicker of recognition, understanding blossomed. They were both striving for more than just fixing a cart. They were building connections, they were healing together. "Thanks for being here," the tall woman said to Sarah, gratitude playing in her eyes. "It's not often I find myself in a group like this." "Me neither," Sarah admitted, heart swelling. "Who knew we'd all come together over falling snacks?" Moments passed in warm camaraderie. They laughed more easily now, sharing stories as they cleaned. Children shouted encouragement to their parents. Parents encouraged their children. A bond was unspooling. each interaction weaving together the fabric of a community that had previously stood on the periphery of one another's lives. Just as they finished, Sarah's heart fluttered, realizing that a shift had taken root. In this unity, there was no longer a town filled with judgments. Instead, it blossomed into a space of acceptance. "Let us take this a step further," boomed a voice from the back. A community member Sarah recognized. Jim, the owner of the auto repair shop, stepped forward, eyes shining with excitement. "Como about we organize a festival right here in the park? We'll start with a kids' day, flying stories, and even food vendors. Let us celebrate each other." Cheers erupted, voices mingling in vibrant elation. As the future unfolded before her, Sarah felt a deep warmth rise within her heart. Perhaps she would finally become part of something bigger in Maplewood. "I'll teach the hand signals," she offered, her voice firm, enthusiasm bubbling over. "We can all learn together, and I can even give a demonstration of what they mean. It'll be awesome. We can add flying-themed games too." Someone called out, the ideas snowballing in a whirlwind of creativity as more community members joined in the excitement. Amidst all this, Sarah spotted Sophie glancing at her mother, a hopeful expression on her small face. "Mom, can we fly like real pilots?" she asked, her eyes shining with possibility. "Absolutely," the tall woman responded, kneeling down so only Sophie could hear. "We'll fly higher than we've ever imagined." And in that instant, Sarah understood. Flying high wasn't just about being in the sky. It was about elevating each other, lifting one another to soar and reach for dreams. She wanted Lucy and the kids to know that life, with all its ups and downs, was better when shared. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of lavender and gold, Sarah breathed in the shared unity of her community. In laughter and kindness, they would illuminate the dark corners together. "Ready for the festival?" she called out, a newfound strength binding her voice. "Ready," the crowd answered back, voices rising like a symphony. Sarah smiled, her heart full of joy, and the whispers of doubt faded like shadows into the twilight. Changes were blossoming, friendships were forged, and they were all ready to lift each other into the skies where dreams could fly. This was her new beginning, and it felt brilliant. Now, it's time to leap into this experience. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment below and share your feelings about this incredible transformation. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel this moment of hope. This is the moment to support through your actions, because only true fans understand the importance of being part of this journey.